Welcome into the Dynasty Roundtable. Myself, Matt Babbage, are here with you tonight. Happy 4th of July. It is July 3rd. Hopefully, you will grill a lot of things and you will drink a lot of cold beverages and maybe you'll blow up some stuff safely. But Matt, what explain to the people what we are doing tonight and explain to the podcast audience what is happening.
So in honor of 4th of July weekend, officially kicking off, Wednesday evening, afternoon, that's the official 4th of July weekend kickoff. So we are going to hit you guys with, I don't know if it's 6 each or 6 total, but at 6 to 12, anywhere from 6 to 12, bold predictions for the NFL season. So we're sticking in our dynasty pocket a little bit here, giving you some bold predictions, and we're going to draft the winning Bestball Mania 5 entry on Underdog while we do it. It's an incredible weekend for everybody to relax, recharge, and for us sickos, draft even more fantasy teams. So it's going to be an incredible episode, and thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, and if you haven't done it already, click the like button and subscribe to the Player Profiler channel, the YouTube channel. And also, our podcast link is in the description of this channel. You should definitely go, subscribe to that and listen to the podcast as well. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to enter a Bestball Mania 5 draft, and we'll see how long we got to wait. So we're waiting for 7 people. So if you are watching us right now, you can head over to Underdog. You can draft with the promo code Underworld. Go draft your ass off and get that deposit match and get that account funded so you can come draft with us. You probably have about, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I don't know how fast the BBMs are filling these days. But actually, I do. They fill pretty fast. But as we're talking here, Matt, do you want me to start? I guess we can start off with a bold prediction, right?
Yeah, why don't you give us your first bold prediction?
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't know how bold it is. I know, I'm just going to go with the one that you reacted to when I texted you earlier today, and I think Evan Engram's going to be the tight end 1 overall. I'm just going to say it because he led all of tight ends in targets last year. 143 targets. And yes, they added Brian Thomas Jr., they added Gabriel Davis, gone is Calvin Ridley. But when you think about how this offense runs with Trevor Lawrence, and I know Trevor Lawrence has really disappointed fantasy gamers, and I think this plays into that as well. We just assume Trevor Lawrence can't feed multiple people, and that couldn't be further from the truth, because last year Trevor Lawrence ranked number 8 in pass attempts, number 5 in deep ball attempts. All right, the draft is officially full, and we are picking out of the 8th spot. So just to give the podcast people some reference here, but I'll finish my take here before the draft gets going. So Trevor Lawrence, like I said, 8th in pass attempts, 5 in deep ball attempts, and the pace of play for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well was number 2 in the NFL. So not only do they pass a lot, but they also run at a high tempo pace. And I believe that Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabriel Davis are actually better complements, even though there's more of them, to Evan Engram and Christian Kirk. So Evan, you look at where Evan Ingram's getting drafted, he finishes the tight end 2 last year. For some reason, this isn't dynasty, people. For some reason, Evan Ingram's getting drafted as the tight end 8 in these leagues, and that really doesn't make much sense to me. So what do you think? What do you like? Where do you sit on Evan Engram as the draft has officially kicked off?
Well, I want it to be very clear to the audience that I have never sat on Evan Engram, and I'll never sit on Evan Engram unless he asks, because he is the tight end 1.
Yeah,
maybe not the tight end 1, but right now he's being drafted at tight end 8 at a overall of 78 of ADP. You mentioned the type of opportunity he's going to get. That's going to get better without Calvin Ridley. So his red zone target share, which is what's most important here. If you're going to be tight end 1, you need to be the Laporta of tight ends of last year, where you're soaking up red zone targets. Yeah, go ahead and make this first pick for us while I
okay. Do you have a preference here? Because I really don't.
Anybody but Puka. AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. All right.
But
All right.
this all being said, there's a huge gap from tight end 1 to tight end 8 in terms of the cost that you're putting into a player. And with the same weekly ceiling as everyone above him, you can get Evan Engram at player 80, whereas you're spending a top 46 pick on Laporta, Kelsey, McBride. And so when you look at the floor too, that's really the difference. There's a little bit of a less stable floor. But in terms of the tight end position, I think the boom weeks are more important than having a stable floor. It's tight end. It's a gross position. There's always the potential for an 8-point game. But absolutely love the tight end one bold take there with Evan Engram. I could easily see him being a top 5 option.
Yeah. And I think he's relatively cheap in Dynasty too, because he's older, like quote unquote older, but for tight ends, we don't care as much.
Right.
So that's I love the misconceptions there as well. So we're about 4 picks away, and I want to get your go ahead.
I want to talk about this strategy here because are we gonna overdraft Devonta Smith just to have a triple stack when we can just get maybe Goddard later?
I don't know what's a better. It
and
depends on who's there.
And this is because I think Devontae Adams, who I just wrote a draft kit blurb about today, has potential to be the wide receiver 5 or a top 8 receiver again overall. I mean, he gets Devonta Smith's not getting a 30% target share. Devontae Adams is. He's going to have a 30% target share. He's going to have a 25% red zone target share. And so this is just where I'm not sure personally if dipping down that far is worth the stack. I mean, like Drake London's after ADP. We could potentially do Barkley.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
It would be a unique, because I would think most people would. So Drake London does go. So you would probably prefer Devontae Adams here, I would guess.
I think so, but I took AJ Brown, so you get final call here. We're building this together, so
let's get spicy, dude.
Let's
just do it. Let's get spicy. That's
You're
I feel
right.
it's a unique.
It may be unique. Let's look at Devonta Smith real quick. Let's look at Devonta Smith's ADP because
and this sets us
I
up.
feel like there are teams that have AJB a little after ADP, like AJB at 10 and Devonta Smith a little after that. I feel like there might be unique teams that got these players at a better deal than we did, but
maybe
we gotta we'll fuck around and find out, as the kids say. So
is that what they're saying now? They fuck around and find out. That is horrible advice.
That's the whole. There's a whole graph. The more you fuck around, the more you find out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, is it the dude on YouTube that's just like with the equations?
Yeah, I mean that's not when the saying originated, but it's when it kind of blew up. Was from that chart meme, because that started being circulated. But you know who's gonna fuck around and find out this year? People who don't draft Dionte Johnson. Talk about being at the top far right of that graph. Dionte Johnson, my bold prediction number 1 is that Dionte Johnson outscores Tank Dell in PPR points per game. I will go as far as to say that I think Dionte Johnson can be a top 16 wide receiver in PPR. And now let me tell you why. So on the simplest platform, Tank Dell is the 3rd receiving option on the Houston Texans with 2 more solidified red zone threats and an improved running back room with a back that will command more targets with Joe Mixon. Recovering from a couple of bad injuries, like one being a gunshot wound. And Dionte Johnson is the lead target on the Carolina Panthers, going to be peppered with targets. Has had over a 20% red zone target share in 3 straight seasons, 20%, 23% or higher target share since 2020, multiple finishes inside the top 20 in expected fantasy points per game, wide receiver 8 overall in points per game PPR in 2020. And when you look at the offenses from the sky view. You say, well, Tank Dell's on the Texans, and so there's going to be more opportunity there than in Carolina. CJ Stroud only had 0.4 more pass attempts per game this season than last season. So there's going to be similar passing volume. Dionte Johnson's the lead target. I don't understand why he's going so late, and I don't understand why Tank Dell's being drafted ahead of him. The third option. Andrew Cooper said that a team hasn't given 3 players 100 targets in multiple seasons. It just doesn't happen. We obviously go Hurts here.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, we kind of have to. We've
put our eggs in that basket. We've done.
We are all in on Philly, and
we probably should have pushed the envelope to get him at 40. Now that I think about it, I wasn't looking at ADP, but I think we'll be all right.
I think we needed to do that. I think he probably, like, some asshole would have taken him. Like, I'm done. Like, sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'm not. Let us know in the chat. Mark's probably happy. He's got the Philly icon in his. He's like, let's go. So shout out to Mark. He's in the chat. Shout out to Gerard Dean, Jamie Perog, Kevin. He's got the eyeballs going. So yes, I love your Dionte Johnson, and he's definitely a target of mine in these drafts. I have a lot of exposure to him as well. Any final thoughts on that? I kind of interrupted you to make the pick.
No, you're good. That was essentially my whole argument. Like, Andrew Cooper went on Mind a Mansion and talked about how rare it is for a team to have 3 players on its team reach 100 targets in a season. And for that type of profile, right? So, like, that stat alone, you're looking at, okay, then why is Tank Dell being drafted so high? Because he's the third option on that team. So now you're telling me it's going to be a stretch for him to get 100 targets this season? Oof. I mean, we're talking about multiple rounds ahead of where he should be drafted right now, if that's the case.
Yeah. And I think he's the one that sticks out like a sore thumb as far as, like, which one of these parts doesn't quite add up. So I'm in full agreement with you there. We're 2 picks away, man. So we're obviously not drafting Tank Dell. Sam Laporta's fallen pretty, like, past ADP here, like 3 picks.
There's 2 players that I would like here, or 2 players that I'm very okay with here, and he didn't get taken there. So this is either Laporta or ETN for me.
Okay. I'm good with that. I'll throw both of them in the queue. I don't really see anybody that we could.
Jacksonville's such a nice, like, it's not necessarily schedule correlation, but Jacksonville's a very affordable second stack that we can have.
Okay, so
and we can even get Engram as our tight end.
So we'll go.
We
ETN.
can do. Okay, I was also going to say that we can do Pickens if you'd like.
It's okay. I think ETN makes a little bit more sense for this build to get a running back. We don't really need we didn't really need to go running back there, but we have a solidified running back now. And we could also go with just the super stack later with Goddard, and just go full ham with the Eagles. But again, we don't need to do that. Ferguson would be a nice bring back in week 17.
I like maybe
at tight end.
18th round Paris Campbell.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I wouldn't say no.
If we don't go Goddard, or maybe Will Shipley late 18th round, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Philly's going to be I went to war over with somebody in the comments of a Mind a Mansion show, or sorry, Sonic Truth show with the Bold Prediction show with Theo. Went to war with somebody over the Eagles offense, and this was an Eagles fan, and they were just convinced that Kellen Moore isn't a real offensive coordinator, which is just ridiculous to just say that after not even being that bad with the Chargers. People forget Herbert was like a top 10 quarterback in fantasy points per game last year. Keenan Allen was the wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
But because Brandon Staley can't call a defense, Kellen Moore is now apparently bad at what he does. Is that ADP now? Is Dionte Johnson right after Tank Dell ADP? I think someone went tipped on him, right?
No. Yeah,
but
Dionte Johnson
right now though, like
72 ADP. He's being drafted like it's stupid low right now. Like I did it, not to toot my own horn. I'm gonna mix
point in doing that though.
I'm gonna mix it into. I know it's a dumb pick, but it's a smart pick.
Exactly.
You know,
It's a dumb pick, but it's a smart pick because you're in a tournament format with thousands and thousands of lineups. Dionte Johnson was going at like 85 at the beginning of the offseason. You got to fight with some prime Dionte Johnson value. You're going to take him at 47 when he's going at 72. Yeah. It's just a way to get your entry scratched, and it's a donation, really.
I agree with that. Should we try to squeeze? Well, maybe we wait one more pick for another bold prediction. But who are you looking at here for our selection here in 4 picks?
We could. There's Jaden Reed. I don't know how you feel about like Kincaid as a hero tight end, so to speak. We could always go Hollywood Brown. I love Chris Godwin. One of my bold predictions is actually that Chris Godwin's a top 24 receiver this year.
Okay.
Because of him moving back into the slot in Tampa Bay is going to work wonders for him. And we're going to see his, we kind of talked about it too in our last show where, that actually works out perfectly for us. Where
let's take him.
All Godwin has to do is have his catch rate revert back to his historical average and get some more touchdown luck this year with more slot snaps. Hopefully they run like a little bit more 11 personnel. Maybe Jalen McMillan is the guy they've been looking for to be able to do more of that, getting 3 receiver sets, even more room for Chris Godwin to work. But Chris Godwin has a pretty clear path to top 24. If you just look at his historical production when he's heavily utilized in the slot, we could really have a top 16, top 12 receiver in Chris Godwin. So I love taking him at like wide receiver 35 or wherever he's going right now.
Yeah, no, I love that pick.
So there we go.
For all the reasons
we got a bold prediction in there.
Yeah, you got Chris Godwin in there. After this pick, I'll give one because we'll have a little bit more time. But I love the Chris Godwin pick. We talked about it. I mean, it's as simple as touchdown regression. Really. I mean, 13 for Mike Evans last year, 2 for Chris Godwin. The odds of that happening again, not very good. And Baker Mayfield, what I really like about Baker Mayfield is he's thrown the ball. And I'm bringing like I'm pretty sure he was 7th in pass attempts last year and number 1 in deep ball attempts. I'm bringing it up right now just to confirm that. And yes, I'm right. Number 7 in pass attempts, number 1 in deep ball attempts. And that's probably why Mike Evans had such a bananas year, because he probably caught like a bunch of long touchdown passes. But guess what? NFL teams adjust to that. And so there's likely going to be more underneath opportunities for Chris Godwin this year and in what's going to be a very similar offense. I know they have a new offensive coordinator, but I can't think of his name right now, but he comes from the Sean McVay tree, I'm pretty sure. So I like the fit quite a bit. And, Baker Mayfield had a cup of coffee. So we're on the clock here. Oh, shit. This is always happens here. So we have Rashad. You want Rashad White?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Let me slow down.
I definitely think it's probably between White and Kyle Pitts. I don't really love the wide receivers here.
I don't either.
Or we could take our guy Evan Engram. Why don't we go Kyle Pitts?
All right, let's do it.
And because we already got a running back.
There's a lot of mid-tier running back. Like we can go as late as Kamara to get our RB. We don't even have to take like a Kamara as our RB2, but there's a lot of room to get our RB2. So might as well just kind of shift our bet over to Kyle Pitts. And then we can go Goddard if we want to later on as well, if that's how we want to continue to play this. But we kind of got to think about where we're going to put the QB2 into this lineup, what we're going to do there. But this is shaping up to be good. One last point on Godwin that I just kind of thought about. So I don't know what the actual stat is, but I know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers struggled in terms of red zone scoring percentage, so turning red zone trips into touchdowns. And Mayfield was only 13th in among quarterbacks in red zone attempts. So I wonder if they were a little bit more run heavy and not successful in the red zone, if that kind of shifts and we see more red zone attempts from Mayfield and more red zone targets to Evans and Godwin, just something to kind of think about, like the small things, like just changing your tendencies in the red zone can have massive impacts on some of these guys. So Seth, you want to try and get bold prediction in number 3 and then
Yeah, well, I'll talk about. I don't want to do table talk, but I think George Pickens is going to be a top 12 wide receiver this year. I think it's pretty evident that Pittsburgh, like their offseason was a ringing endorsement of George Pickens because they trade away Dionte Johnson and they wait till round 3 of the NFL draft to take a wide receiver and Roman Wilson, who actually complements him very well. And their wide receiver 2, I know they have Pat Freiermuth, but I'm not too worried about that. As we're coming up here with our next pick, so I might have to put this take on pause. And so there's some running backs right there, or we could go bully tight end and take our guy Evan Engram, which would fit with our Jacksonville.
I say Kamara or Ingram. We go the little mini NFC South stack and get our running back 2, or we go bully tight end. I actually haven't really gone bully tight end very much in Underdog. I don't know how effective it is.
I kind of want to take Evan Engram.
Let's do it
and just call it a day with tight ends. So we don't need any more tight ends now. That's also the nice thing about going bully tight end, which is kind of a pseudo bully tight end. You know, like we spent a 6th and 7th round pick, but honestly, like there's some running backs even that I like. Like look at we're gonna get one of these guys if we want to get a running back there. You know, we might even Alvin Kamara is not going to make it back to us, but we might be able to get Zach Moss, who the teaser for another bold prediction. But just to put a bow on George Pickens, also like there's this, I think a bunch of things working against causing the not the professional fantasy gamer to worry about George Pickens. Like number 1, Arthur Smith's there, and number 2, like, oh, they're just going to run the ball a lot. But Arthur Smith was actually really good in Tennessee when he was the offensive coordinator for one AJ Brown. And I feel like it's not a perfect comparison, but I feel as though George Pickens' play style is very similar to AJ Brown. And it just feels like this offense is going to feature their number 1 wide receiver very heavily. And then you go, well, Russell Wilson hasn't really thrown the ball a lot over the last couple of years, and that's true, but he did rank number 19 in pass attempts last year, number 9 in deep ball attempts, and he missed 2 games, or rather he was benched for 2 games because of the whole contract situation towards the end of the year. So you would think that if he was allowed to play those 2 games, he probably would have been 15th, 14th in pass attempts, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I think George Pickens is just going to get peppered with targets. And now I feel like I've kind of dominated the pick, so I'll let you make this selection here. Like, what you thinking? Running back is the pretty clear value here. Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to go either Jonathan Brooks or Jaylen Warren.
Okay, we're gonna get one of them for sure. Who would you prefer out of the 2? Well, I guess it's going to be Brooks.
It's going to be, can we scroll down just a little bit to see? Yeah, it's okay. No receivers there. So we're going to do Jonathan Brooks, and then we got to get back to drafting some receivers.
Yep, because we have 3 receivers, 3 really good ones. So I feel good about that.
I'm not worried about it. But we are going to have to get back to doing it. So while we're on this turn, I'll take the opportunity to go and give my bold prediction number 3, and he just went off the board. Alvin Kamara is going to outscore Derrick Henry in fantasy points per game this season. I wanted to be very positive about Derrick Henry when I sat down to write his draft kit write-up today, and I just couldn't do it. RB10 is wild value for somebody who put up over 1,000 yards last year and had over 300 touches. The worry about Derrick Henry is, okay, is he going to catch more passes in Baltimore than he did in Tennessee? Probably not. That's going to be a historic write-off, right? Derrick Henry just doesn't catch that many passes. You can look to his efficiency, but that's, on a very small sample. And so even if his efficiency corrects and we have a hyper efficient season in a Ravens backfield that is going to see some lighter boxes, he has to have 12 plus touchdowns and he has to have 1,300 yards for him to finish as a top 10 running back without catching passes. We look at just last year, the top 10 in fantasy points per game were or the only back in the top 10 that didn't have at least 2.5 receptions per game is Raheem Mostert, and it's because he had 21 touchdowns. So unless that's what we want to bet on, like 1,300-yard, 20 touchdown season from Derrick Henry, I'm out. I'm going to take the guy that was pacing for over 100 receptions or 100 receptions last year, and the one who's going to be heavily targeted and have insane PPR upside. Derrick Henry's going to be 31 years old. It took him 280 carries last year to get to 1,100 yards. Is he going to be able to take 300 carries for 1,300 yards? I just don't. I don't see the outcome where he just massively outkicks his ADP. But Kamara at RB 18, considering he was like the RB 3 or 4 in fantasy points per game last year, pretty easy path for him to beat that.
Are you cool with Lockett here, or do you want? We got 3
seconds.
Yeah,
we can push it. Let's go Lockett.
Okay. Cool.
I don't know how much I love Lockett this year, but let's take a bet on him.
We needed another receiver. I'm all right with it. I think he's still going to play a pretty prominent role. I think it is wild that we're just assuming JSN's going to, out target him. I don't know. I think that's kind of wild. I mean, for this year, like obviously in Dynasty, like the whole contract situation. But I'm gonna
real quick.
Go ahead.
The Saints don't save money by cutting Kamara until next season. For what it's worth, I believe, unless I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Kamara is holding out right now, but there's no way he actually sits out the season. He can't afford to do that.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is in pro Derrick Henry, because I'm pretty pro Derrick Henry, even at his ADP, just kind of looking at it, because like, who's gonna compete for touches with him? Like Justice Hill, like Keaton Mitchell's gonna miss camp. There's definitely a world.
There's no one competing for touches. He's got to hit 300 plus carries.
He could do that. I mean,
unless he starts getting 2.5 receptions a game, which would be crazy.
Yeah.
He had
where do you want to go?
28. I think he had 28 receptions last year, and that was like near a career high.
Yeah. Where do you want to go with this next pick? I made the last one. I want to make sure we have enough time for you to. So we're at a 1, 2, 4, 2 build right now.
We could go Shakir and do a late round. We could potentially go Shakir and do a late round stack with a guy like okay. I was reverse jinxing us so that he wouldn't take Lawrence, which is who I want.
So we're good at actually this. I think sets up pretty nicely because we have the Jacksonville stack.
Running back.
Yeah, so we have our quarterbacks, we have our tight ends. We're done. I'm not really concerned that they have the same bye week. I know some people were worried about that. Like the tight ends have the same bye week, rather. I'm cool with that. So now we're done at quarterback. We're done at tight end. We can just hammer running backs and wide receivers. I like it.
Our tight ends have the same bye week.
Yeah, that's not a huge deal. Is that
it's always so funny how that sneaks up on you. You're like, oh, this could be the perfect 2 tight end build, and you're like, all right, well, there's a 0.
Yeah.
I guess a 0 at tight end in week 5 like probably isn't the end of the world, but it's obviously not ideal.
Well, then, or you could have 2 tight ends with a different bye week, and then the one just puts up a 0. So you never know. But yeah, it's a guaranteed 0. So I understand what you're saying. But just to add on to this, there's definitely a world where he falls into the end zone like 18, 20 times. I mean, he could be the Raheem Mostert of this year that actually gets high volume. Because I don't know if there's going to be that competition for touches that like I could definitely see Baltimore just running him into the ground. But on your side, like the offensive line is a concern. There's 3 players that they're going to have to replace along the offensive line that don't have a ton of experience in the offense. And I don't know. There's one more thing, but I can't think of it right now. but that was on your side. But that's a huge concern though, like the offensive line. But if there's a coach that I would trust to figure that out, it would probably be somebody like John Harbaugh. So I don't know. I'm pretty pro Derrick Henry. Let us know in the chat. Are you pro Derrick Henry at ADP, or do you think, or do you agree with Matt Babbage? Because I don't necessarily hate Alvin Kamara, but I don't mind drafting Derrick Henry where he's going. That's just
here's the
how I view
thing.
the world.
So in the spring, pre-June 1st, they only would have saved 500,000 if they cut him. So that wasn't an option. Now it's post June 1st. So now they're looking at saving 10.6 million, 10.7 if they cut him now, but 19 million if they wait and cut him next year. So he's a saint this year. Like I'm willing, saving him 10 mil this year does nothing. Like they can't do anything with it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts here? Because we're on the clock. We could go Gabe Davis and add to our Jacksonville stack, or we could add a running back, Zeke, as a bring back for our Philly stack.
I like either Gabe Davis and dip into the stack, or honestly Jerry Jeudy maybe, but I like Gabe Davis here. Shockingly,
I think Gabe Davis will give us some spike weeks in this offense.
I think it's really what our build needs right now, and now we can focus our attention on running backs, and it's a decent spot to do that given who we have.
Yeah, I think Gabe Davis in Jacksonville makes a hell of a lot more sense than Gabe Davis in Buffalo, even though that sounds weird. Like I can just see it now. Like there's some underneath weapons. I know Stephon Diggs was in Buffalo, but there's multiple weapons now that, you know, I just feel as though Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. might exchange. Like they might be too unpredictable on a week-to-week basis, but in best ball, like I'm totally fine because both of them have a ton of upside.
Best ball is a completely different situation because if Henry duds, you have other people, but because it's an exposure game, I still would be out on being heavily exposed to Derrick Henry in best ball. Because if he doesn't live up to RB10, that's just essentially you're saying you have an inefficient build, and that's not how you win tournaments. He can probably be someone who gets you to advance rounds and cash there. I don't think that Derrick Henry is the skeleton key to winning BBM5, which is fine. You're again, it's a whole exposure thing, so that's how you're going to want to diversify your portfolio.
Yeah. Oh, there goes our dream of having Zeke on our team.
Yeah, because would have been pretty nice.
Doesn't it feel like Zeke is just like gonna fall in the end zone like 15 times? Because there's no doubt that Rico Dowdle's the better running back right now. Like you look at it's sort of like the Jaylen Warren versus Najee Harris conversation. Like there's no doubt in my mind Rico Dowdle's a better football player right now and should be, you know, the lead running back. But it's Zeke Elliott and it's Dallas. So what do you think's going to happen? You know, it's like one of those illogical things.
Who we got here in the queue?
Nobody right now. But who do you want? Who do you want?
I'm not talking. I'm a best ball. I've been killed too many times by talking about things before they happen. Jerome Ford. We can go Jerome Ford or Kendre Miller here, in my opinion.
Do you have a preference? Because I don't.
Probably the one that's gonna start for his team.
That's Jerome Ford.
I don't know what's gonna happen with Nick Chubb's health, but I do know that at least early season Jerome Ford will
10 picks after ADP too.
Let's just do it.
11 picks after ADP. I like that. I think this is shaping up to be a good team. Like we're gonna have strong play at quarterback, strong play at tight end outside of week 12. But that's just gonna be a blimp in the radar, I think, for this team. Like week 12 is just gonna, like, if you stack like a bunch of people, like week 12 is just gonna be rough in general. But
what's your next bold prediction?
All right, let's do this. All right, so Maddie Kiwoom and I were talking as we normally do, and we both believe, because he said it, and I was like, "You're absolutely right." If you can figure out this Bengals running back situation, you could have a league-winning running back on your hands. And I believe that running back is Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is going to finish as a top 12 running back, and we don't have much to go on. But other than like weeks 2 through 6 last year, where he was the lead running back in Indianapolis, running behind a pretty good offensive line, and he's not going to be running behind a terrible offensive line in Cincinnati, but we need to realize how Cincinnati has used their running backs in the past. It could change post Joe Mixon, but Joe Mixon has never been an efficiency king. Joe Mixon has always been a volume dependent running back, and that's worked for him in Cincinnati. And I don't necessarily even think that Zach Moss needs the Joe Mixon treatment as far as volume. I don't think he's going to get that level, but I think he's going to get a ton of volume, and we're already up here with our next pick, and Kendre Miller's still there.
If he stays on the board, I think we do it. I'm really upset that some of those running backs have already gone, but I think we go Kendre there and then go probably back to receiver or something like that and kind of flip-flop back and forth as we close out the draft.
Okay, I would love Kendre at this ADP. We'll see what happens. This guy's going to time out and take Will Levis. All right.
Nice.
I think Kendre
Some
Miller,
really good value on Goff right now, too. Goodness gracious. Yeah, how is the person with Amon-Ra, unless they already have 2 quarterbacks, continue to pass up Jared Goff or Laporta? Like, how is this happening?
I don't know. This has been kind of a funky draft because, like, look at this. Who's the guy who took Dionte Johnson really early? Like, he's got a funky kind of build. I'm sure he took Tua. But he took Jake Ferguson really early. And he took Goddard. Like, Goddard, I guess it's a bring back for his Ferguson Dak stack with his
This is
receiver.
A really weird build.
Anyway, yeah.
Chubb is the RB1. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, Chubb is his RB1.
This is Cook. That's a badge too. It's insane.
He's just trying to get unique, I think.
Yeah, it has to be what it is. Like,
yeah, he's probably gonna win Bestball Mania with this fucking team. That's how it goes.
I wouldn't be shocked.
These are how this is how it goes.
But to respond to your take though, I don't know if either of those backs are going to be a league winning back. I think they're both going to kind of cannibalize themselves. And what do we think Zach Moss is going to be anywhere near a 70% opportunity share? Hell no. Would it be incredible if they hit 60%? Absolutely. Like Ramondre Stevenson had a 62% opportunity share last year and was still incredibly disappointing. So just because one gets more opportunity than the other, and just because they're both kind of efficient in short spurts, doesn't mean that that's going to hold when they start getting higher volume. And then they're no better than Joe Mixon being volume dependent running backs. I just don't think. But I think you are correct in saying that there is a world out there where what I'm saying is complete hogwash, and Zach Moss ends up being a league-winning running back because he finishes like in the top 18 with 12 touchdowns in some crazy year. So I think there's merit to the argument. I'm just not someone who's drafting a lot of either.
All right. We're on the clock. I have one guy in the queue. What do you think of that? Or we could go further down the 8. What do you think?
I am okay with Roman Wilson. In a vacuum, I prefer the person who's listed above him, Pop Douglas, but that receiver room is really messy. Go Roman Wilson.
We got it. I think we got it in. Yep. All right. I almost switched it, but I didn't. So
Pat Freiermuth known to miss time, if
and there's not a lot of competition for targets there. It's George Pickens, Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren is going to catch more passes than Najee, which is why he's a better option. We both agree there. But like Zach, like my counterpoint to that would probably be, do we trust Chase Brown? Because I don't necessarily know.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's my whole point. Because one of them.
Sorry, keep going.
No, because I believe one of them is going to get the 60%. They might not get the 70%. And that, to me, that points to Zach Moss. Zach Moss, I think can handle that kind of workload. Chase Brown, I don't think can. So that's the whole theory is based off of, I think Chase Brown is overrated. So, but if if you're anti Zach Moss, then you should be on Chase Brown. If you're anti Chase Brown, you should be on Zach. Like that's, and the price tag is not very, very high. And also you're thrown into the equation. How have the Bengals used their running backs in the past? Well, they haven't really had, they haven't really been without Joe Mixon. So either Joe Mixon was really good and they trusted him, and which the stats would say, he's kind of an inefficient player throughout his career, or they just prefer to use one running back most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, the counterpoint to that is that Moss paced for nearly 250 touches last season, finishes the RB28 in fantasy points per game, had 7 touchdowns. So he's RB26 right now in ADP. And so if he's going to be a league winner at cost, then he needs to finish RB14, doing half his ADP, somewhere around there to be a massive value at ADP. Yeah. I just don't know if I see that path. If Chase Brown had a better path to being the Zach Moss that we're imagining in this scenario, again, your take would be a little bit stronger, because I think what's pinning one arm behind your guys' back on this take is that you guys don't really even believe in Chase Brown. So what you're really saying is Zach Moss is going to be a league-winning running back. And then when you start to analyze that statement alone, you're like, is Zach Moss going to be a league-winning running back? That guy just took Braylon Allen incredibly early.
Yeah. So we're up here in one pick. So we have 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers. Here are the running backs.
Take over for this pick. I've been kind of commandeering the last few picks. So,
all right. So let me see. Jacksonville. No, I don't have enough time to do this. Damn it. I was going to say
schedule.
Yeah. They played Tennessee. And there's nobody really for Dallas. I don't really hate Demarcus Robinson here.
Where you're reading my mind.
All right. Because I could have also gone J.K. Dobbins, but he might be there on our next pick.
Well, it wasn't going to be Khalil Herbert, I'll tell you that much.
Khalil Herbert, why is he going ahead of Roshan?
It's ridiculous.
It isn't like, okay.
Let's protest and take Roshan with our next pick.
Khalil Herbert is going to get cut. Like you do realize this, right? Everybody who's drafted, like I'm as plugged in to the Bears as you can humanly possibly be. Like DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert, like DeAndre Swift's a better version of Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert cannot pass protect. Guess what Roshan can do? He can pass protect, so he's going to get the third down work. Like Khalil Herbert is the biggest fade. Like do not draft. Do not touch him. Trade him away for whatever you can get in Dynasty player that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I don't know what to say. He's the RB3. There's a real chance he gets cut, and like he doesn't make the team. I don't know. This ADP makes no sense.
Roshan, the good people forget that Roshan Johnson was the RB8 in week 1 with 17.5 fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the spike weeks that you're getting at RB60. And they brought Swift in because they're not confident in Herbert. And just as you mentioned, all the beat that we've been getting is it's not looking good for Khalil Herbert because there's not really a phase in the game that he truly beats out Swift or Roshan Johnson in. So, I mean, I think it's Jover for Khalil Herbert.
If J.K. Dobbins goes here, should we just take Roshan just to hammer home this point? Or what do you want to do?
I 100% agree with that. I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy, but it's a 16th round pick. I think J.K. Dobbins can be a league winner. Talk about bold prediction.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, because
even if he's just healthy for the fantasy playoffs, like if he's not healthy all year, comes in, maybe has a hamstring injury, comes back week 15 through 17, has, a 2-touchdown game, a touchdown game, and then like a 90-yard performance. Like that's a league winner right there. There's very little investment. He could be a roster clogger is the big issue, but what do you think about J.K. Dobbins? He's on the board. We're going to take him.
I'm taking him because here's the deal. Greg Roman was there when they had J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore. Your competition for targets are right now, the quote unquote leader is Gus Edwards, right? He's not proven that he can be a bell cow running back. Kamani Vidal's nice, but he's a rookie. Not really. I love him in Dynasty. I'm not sure how much we're going to get in year one. And J.K. Dobbins is clearly, if he's healthy, and that's the big if, and according to him, according to other reports, he's healthy. He's completely healthy. He's the most talented running back on that roster. So you're getting the most talented running back on the roster. Granted, he's dealing with injuries, but that's more than baked into his price on a team that's going to want to run the football, that's going to be efficient. I believe the Chargers are going to be efficient from a passing perspective, from a running perspective. I think it's going to be a lot more dialed in this year with Jim Harbaugh running the show as opposed to Brandon Staley at head coach.
Mile High Luke did correctly call us on our bullshit though. He said, "Why would you take Dobbins over Roschon based on what you just outlined?" And
well, no, because Dobbins,
quite frankly, it's because of vibes, right? Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. And ADP, like there's,
but like Vidal and Gus Edwards is going to be tougher to beat out with health versus Roschon Johnson and Gus Edwards is a goal line back, so it's not like Dobbins is going to be the touchdown vulture. So
but Dobbins,
I understand.
The difference though is Dobbins could be the lead running back, whereas Roschon's pretty much locked into the RB2 spot. Like that's the difference. Like,
yeah, there are arguments for both. Like my exposure is heavier on Roschon. I'll give it that, but
I love both. We could have easily gone Roschon there, and Roschon's off the board now.
Well, given how this draft was going, there was a non-zero chance Roschon made it back to us for our last RB spot.
Yeah,
that wasn't going to happen with Dobbins. So you do have to play that ADP game a little bit.
So I have Tolbert in the queue. He would be a bring back for our Philly stuff. We don't have to go that direction. We also have like Luke McCaffrey.
I just don't know if Tolbert's going to do anything. You know what I mean? But
it's definitely on the table.
There's McCaffrey going to do anything? I don't know if he gets more targets than Jalen Tolbert over the course of the season.
We could just handcuff our Jerome Ford too with Donta Foreman. Tank Bigsby's there, but that would be a handcuff for a premier running back. I don't know if I like doing that.
Let's just do Tolbert.
All right. Yeah, well, the clock's going to run out. We're going to get Tolbert, and we should probably go running back with our last pick.
Yeah, we decided when we took 2 tight ends with the same bye on accident that at this point, you're playing a losing game if you chase for the 3rd tight end to fill that 1 week of a 0. So unfortunately, at this point in our draft, we just have to hope that 0 in week 12 doesn't impact us, because what could hurt us more is double dipping there. And so obviously not the ideal scenario, but in these situations, it's really easy to overcorrect, and that can hurt you worse. So what we're not going to do is take a 3rd tight end and further handicap us by wasting a roster spot for all but 1 week.
I don't think it's that as big of a deal as you think. I really don't think so, because what are you going to do? Take okay, so let's say we took, I don't know, Jonnu Smith, and then Jonnu Smith puts up a 0 in week 12. You know what I mean? Like that, then it defeats the whole purpose of taking like another tight end late.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like not only then do you have to, you're betting on week 12 for that to be a big week. Because if it's 8 or less points, really, that's probably going to be minuscule unless that's how much you miss the cut line bye.
Yeah.
So the odds of the tight end, that third tight end really mattering on your roster are very low. So I don't mind Foreman. I think I like Shipley for the Eagles.
I like Shipley too.
I don't hate Rasheen Ali either, because I think who's going to be the Keaton Mitchell of the first 10 to 12 weeks of the season? That could be Rasheen Ali.
Ali, where is
I
he? He's
do
way
like
down there.
Estime too. The 18th round is just such a good round to just fire off all these different running backs that could be. I hate going round 18 receiver because of all these running backs. Like if you just keep sprinkling Shipley, sprinkling Ali, sprinkling Foreman, like sprinkling Estime, you're gonna get a couple of hits there. So I love going round 18 running back. Who do you want to take here?
I think with our build, I think Shipley makes sense, but I do agree with you. I think all these late round running backs are like on the table. Like I would much prefer going late round running back than late round receiver. Like there's a few late round receivers I like. I actually like Tolbert because he's penciled into the wide receiver, penciled in because you can erase it. It's not written in pen. But Jalen Tolbert figures to be the wide receiver 3 in Dallas, so that should mean something on a pass happy team that should have a pretty bad defense. Chark I like late just because you never know what can happen there, and I'm not a big believer in Quentin Johnston. Outside of that, Jalen Hyatt, okay, he's kind of a one-trick pony. I guess you can make the argument. I do like DeMarcus Robinson, but that's not really a late round, like last pick type of deal. But yeah, so I much prefer, and even Tank Bigsby. Like Bigsby would have made sense for us if we didn't have, Travis Etienne, because that kind of limits your upside in best ball. But this draft is going to end. I can't remember if we got to your last bold prediction. Did we get to 6 bold predictions?
We definitely got to 6 total. I think we each did 3.
Okay, so I'll review this team. So I think we got to 6 bold predictions. So we went Hurts and Trevor Lawrence. We went the 2-6-8-2 route. Travis Etienne, Jonathan Brooks, Jerome Ford, Kendre Miller, J.K. Dobbins, Will Shipley at running back. Wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Gabe Davis, Roman Wilson, DeMarcus Robinson, and Jalen Tolbert. And then Kyle Pitts, Evan Engram. The only slip up that we had was we had the same bye, but I don't think it's a huge deal. Matt, what do you think? What kind of grade should we get here with this draft? How good do we do?
I feel like we get a B. So we look at quarterbacks, and we got an elite quarterback in Jalen Hurts, hyper mobile, and we have Trevor Lawrence, who has weekly QB1 potential with his ability to throw for 400 yards and a few touchdowns. We have Travis Etienne, who I still think is a fairly underrated running back. We have Brooks, so we have our 2 anchors, and then we have a mix of guys who should get a lot of opportunity with Jerome Ford, who's going to be a week 1 starter, Kendre Miller, who if I am wrong about Alvin Kamara, will be a huge value, especially at 152. Dobbins, if he's healthy, could be a very big value at RB 55. And then Shipley, if anything happens to Saquon, if he's the Kenny Gainwell of this offense, has some potential weekly upside, even with Barkley active. Then we got the A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Love that. Maybe a little early on Devonta Smith, but I am generally someone who is a little bit more of an ADP slave. So I'm happy for this to prove me wrong here. It's a good experiment. Love Godwin, Lockett, Davis, Roman Wilson, DeMarcus Robinson. We got guys in the background that have potential for spike weeks on a weekly basis. And then Jalen Tolbert for an NFC East stack, just a little dart. If Brandon Cooks isn't him, if Tolbert really can figure it out in his 3rd year, there is a lot of upside there. Like I put in the chat there, very wide range of outcomes. So he could be useless, but he also could be the wide receiver 2 on Dallas. And then, we're going to have a 0 in week 12, but Kyle Pitts and Evan Engram have potential to be tight end 1 every single week. We got 2 of them in our lineup. So we're going to be dominating the tight ends part of the box score on a weekly basis. So I give it a B. There were rooms for improvement, but this is far from the worst team I've drafted on Underdog or had a part in drafting.
I like it. I like this team. I think I think I'm gonna name. I don't know how you do this, but I'll have to name this team later when I can figure it out. Tyler Knably could probably. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. So
I think you maybe hit the I next to Bestball
do we
Mania
hit the
5.
I? We're learning on the
No, not
it's
that one.
it's
Is it
all
the
good.
drop? What does the drop down arrow do? We're gonna. This is great radio. No,
Just
all
goes to
right,
the
maybe
teams.
not.
There's a way to do. I don't know why. I'm feeling pretty stupid right now. Anywho, Matt, let's so that's our draft. Let us know what you think in the comments. Mile High Luke Botanical Extraction. He likes it. He's probably I don't know if he's mile high, if he's high on July 3rd or not, but anyway.
Great interaction from the chat today. A lot of really good conversation. Thank you all as always for tuning into the program.
Your dad gave us a B. Your dad gave us a B.
It's fair. It's
Yeah.
a fair grade. B's are fine. B's got me through college.
B's,
C's, and C's.
D's. You could even go D's get degrees, or unless I don't know what the rules are anymore. It's been a while since I've been in high school.
D's would not have gotten me a degree. So D's don't necessarily get degrees everywhere, but you can follow me on Twitter for more takes at Babbage_Matt10. You can find me on the Player Profiler News YouTube channel and the Profiler_NFL Twitter every Saturday night for Player Profiler. Today, we have a slew of hosts there. Bradley Stalder and crew are doing an amazing job with the news desk. So give that Twitter account a follow. Give that page a subscribe. Subscribe to this page. Like the podcast, please. If you had a good time, even if you didn't, give us a thumbs up. For me, I want to end us on one more bold prediction that I had prepared. We said we were going to prepare 6. I prepared 4 because I'm always over prepared.
There you go.
Brian Robinson, Alfred Morris corollary with Jaden Daniels. This is going to be a combo take. 5 bold predictions. I just came up with this one. Jaden Daniels, top 8 quarterback in fantasy points per game, and Brian Robinson along with him, a top 20 running back in fantasy points per game.
Love it. That's like a throwback to the old school way we used to do the show. We used to make people give bold predictions after the show was over. We don't really do that anymore. But since this show was full of bold predictions, do I have one more bold prediction? Because we just have to go over an hour. Oh yeah, Darnell Mooney, top 30 wide receiver. Book it. He's gonna have spike weeks and he's great in best ball.
Oh, you only sent me 4, so I gave more hot takes than you did.
Oh, well, yeah. So, you said 4, and I have 4.
Well, I gave 5.
Oh,
I guess Daniels.
You just have to. You're the one-upper guy. You're the one-upper. Anyway, give us some bold predictions in the chat. We'll read them. The chat's been amazing tonight. You can follow me on Twitter at the Seth. At Seth, not the Seth, at Seth _DIEWOLD. You can follow my YouTube page, same first and last name, and you should click like and subscribe to this channel. And as Matt Babbage said, you should definitely go over to the Player Profiler News channel on YouTube, click subscribe, watch some videos there. Those guys are grinding their asses off, and I'll go ahead and shout out as many names as I can think of right now. Han Runta, Jonathan Tuma, Brendan Booth, Mike Ginsburg, I think is his name. I could be saying that right, but Mikey, I think they call him Mikey. I could be wrong. I'm sorry, Mike, if I'm saying that right. I know who you are, though. But they're all over there with Bradley Stalder, Emerson Beery. So, yeah. And again, there's so many more, too. So you need to go follow those guys over on Player Profiler News. And until next time.
Real quick, Seth, Darnell Mooney better than Keenan Allen? The people are wondering.
What?
Is he gonna finish higher than Keenan Allen in fantasy points per game if he's top 30?
Keenan Allen's gonna finish. Where's Keenan Allen going in underdog drafts?
Like 36 Let me pull up. Or 32.
What?
For Rome, right?
Wow.
He's low.
I'd say
33.
Okay. Wow. That seems like a value. I know Keenan Allen's going to miss 4 games. I never even thought about that. Do you think that's overreaction based on quote unquote target competition? because we know how Shane
what's
Waldron.
an overreaction is you trying to bait me into Keenan Allen health talk at minute 60 of the show.
As we're trying to wrap up.
You know what you're doing.
You threw the comment in there, Matt Babbage. You threw the I was about ready to say.
Yeah, but I didn't decide to start spreading misinformation.
What are you talking about, misinformation?
Keenan Allen has missed 4 games in, let's see, 2 of the last 7 seasons.
Well, he's an older
There was no
player.
reason he could have played last year. There was no reason for him to come back. We don't have time for this. We don't have time for this right now.
Or we do. We always do this. Let's see. Keenan Allen. Let's see. He's an older guy. He's like 30, what is he? 31, 32? He's probably going to miss 3 to 4 games. Yeah, he's 32. He's 32. He's 32. He played in 13 games last year. He played in 10 the year before that. He's going to miss like 3 to 4 games, and then you're probably going to be happy that you have Rome Odunze.
How much does he play last year, though, if the Chargers had something to play for?
Like
if he plays week 16, 17, or 17, 18, if the Chargers are competitive, he has 15 games on the game log, and you're saying even a little hamstring issue couldn't stop 32-year-old Keenan Allen, who finished as the wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game and was freaking incredible all year. Oh, how 2 games can change a person's point of view. How fickle-minded ye.
Well, yeah. I think Keenan Allen's going to finish slightly higher than Darnell Mooney, but it's going to be close to answer your question. But I think Keenan Allen's of value at ADP right now because of the way Shane Waldron's going to run his offense, because we saw a sneak preview of that last year, which is why I think Rome Odunze is probably not a good selection where he's going. So anyway, you're throwing chat. You're throwing things.
I'm just trying. The people are putting in bold predictions. I just want to get them some airtime.
Okay.
Gosh, it's part of the job. We interact with the chat. I love that one, and I love that one. And we got another Flournoy truther on this channel.
Jason Alwine and you will have your own room at the bar or at your own corner table. All right. Thank you again, chat. I don't mean to undermine the chat. So thank you again, chat. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Wiseman for Heisman. We'll see you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.